It's Throwback Thursday.
Hey everybody, it's time for a Throwback Thursday episode, and this time we're taking you back to March 1st of 2021 when the incredibly talented Karina Deniké stopped by to discuss the Dancehall Crashers' classic ska punk jam, Go. If you enjoy the show, don't forget, we have a huge back catalog of episodes with amazing artists, and even if the episode is a few years old, the story behind the song remains the same, and the conversation is just as good now as when it was recorded. That's what I love about making DeMakes a podcast. I feel like we're creating a recorded history of the stories behind the songs by the people who wrote them. It feels really cool to make this pod, and I hope it feels really cool to listen to it. Let's get to the show. This is episode number 40 from March 1st, 2021. Karina Deniké discusses Dancehall Crashers' Go.
Hey gang, today's guest is my friend, Karina Deniké, best known as co-lead vocalist for the Berkeley, California ska punk band, Dancehall Crashers. Karina is currently the touring keyboardist and backup vocalist for NoFX. Today we take a deep dive into the song Go from the Dancehall Crashers' 1995 major label debut, Lockjaw. Karina tells a really interesting story behind the inspiration for the lyrics, and I couldn't have been further off in what I initially thought the song was about. We get into how producer Stoker would get the band excited and motivated in the studio, and how Karina could relate to his motivational tactics from a cultural perspective. We talk about why Lockjaw was the first Dancehall Crashers album not to feature a horn section, and my thoughts as to why there weren't horns are exactly in line with what Karina explained to me. So grab your dancing shoes and join us on this songwriting trip down memory lane. Hey, hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes a podcast. Hey, hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes a podcast. Hey, hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes a podcast. Hey, hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes a podcast. I've known you for a long time. I've really gotten to know you a little bit better the past couple years because Karina, for the listeners, has been playing keyboards with NoFX for probably the last 4 or 5 years now.
2016, I think, was my first show with them. So yeah, 2016. Yeah, 4 years.
They now have a real singer in the band besides Hefe. It's great.
Yeah, I know. It's an honor. It really is an honor. It's so fun. Everything about it. They're the best. I love all those guys individually and have known them obviously for a very long time, and they put out our records and Dancehall Crasher records, and I've sang a lot on different projects that Mike's been doing over the years, including Home Street Home and NoFX backup little, guest spots here and there. So it's amazing. It's awesome. I love singing with Hefe. It's great.
That's very, very cool. Well,
Thrilled.
Of course, I met Karina back in the day when she was one of the co-front people for the Dancehall Crashers, and we're going to talk about a song today called Go that Karina wrote. It was on the album Lockjaw that was released August 29th of 1995 on 510 Records, which was a subsidiary of MCA Records. And prior to that, you had the record. Now, it's either called the old record or 1989 to 1992. I don't know the exact. I always called it the old record that was on Moon Ska. And you guys had a horn section at that point.
I knew this question was coming, and it was just a matter of time, but you went right to it.
Well, I went right to it because I wanted to get it out of the way because I was one of those people, and this is an unpopular, possibly an unpopular opinion. No offense to whoever played horns on those early recordings, and I liked those recordings and I liked those songs, but I just didn't feel like you needed the horns. I felt that what you and Elise were doing vocally, that the horns just, in my opinion, didn't belong. I felt when I heard Lockjaw, I was blown away. I was like,
Aww.
Wow. It was really a step up from the previous recordings. So basically the first thing I just wanted to touch on was there a reason why there was such a gap between that first record and Lockjaw? Was it just trying to find a label deal?
There were a few things going on. So the old record is called the old record with the years in there, in part because when we re-released it on Honest Don's, a subsidiary of Fat, when Fat Records basically re-released it, we added 3 songs that we had done in this sort of interim period. So the Moonscar album doesn't have Truly Comfortable and these 3 extra songs that we had been working on in that interim. So, we were a band, then we broke up. There were a lot of people in our band in the 1980s. We had a series of lineup changes. Let's say like pretty much everyone in the Bay Area played in our band. And then we broke up and then we had sort of done a little bit of stuff going on in between. But when we reformed, we had been playing without horns for a long time. Like people had quit. We'd gone through a series of horn players, some of whom Mike Park was touring with us, playing horn. Dean Olmsted from Let's Go Bowling did a couple of tours with us, or at least one with King Apparatus. We actually had T-Bone Willie from Save Ferris came to Hawaii with us and played with us on a U.S. tour.
And these guys were all ringers.
Yeah, but this is like before there were other. I mean, Mike Park and Dean were obviously in sort of successful bands, whatever at that point. But and T-Bone was too, but before that was pre-Save Ferris, the early days. And also Matt Morrish was even playing with us, and he is in the Beat now, and he's been in the Beat for years. So I think we were his first like ska band. So we were playing with all these people, and a bunch of people quit or went on to do other things or were busy with other things, and so we had this period where we were already playing without horn players. It was really expensive to tour with so many band members. We didn't have a label. So the reason it took so long in between albums is because we had broken up. Band members had left. We were sort of not really a band for like 2 years. We had gotten a lot of fan mail from kids after our Moon Ska album had come out. And we sort of were surprised to hear how many fans there were that we didn't even realize were out there. So we reformed in part to do sort of like a reunion show, we called it, at Slim's in San Francisco, and realized that we had sort of had this fan base that had developed over the time that we'd been broken up. So it was a few things going on. We just kind of reformed after that, and so that's the long period of time. We weren't consistently a band that whole time.
It's those vocals. It was you and Elise. It's the way you guys were flawless. It's the way you harmonized. It wrote me. I'm a singer first and a guitar player second. It wrote me in. There was nobody singing like you. Yes, there was female fronted ska bands, but not doing the harmonies that you guys were doing. It was just so good. And I always stuck up for you because I always said back then, I'm like, we're in the middle of this third wave ska revival. Everybody has horns. You got the Boss Tones. You got Real Big Fish. If anything, they're crazy for not having the horn section. They're not sellouts. And in my opinion, again, the horns didn't need to be there. I felt like the horns would get in the way for what you and Elise were doing vocally, which was just flawless.
Well, thank you so much. And definitely that is the other reason is that there were a few reasons. So one was what I just mentioned, which was that people were sort of dropping off anyway, and we didn't really have a full band, and we were sort of hiring our friends to step in and do the horn parts. But the other reason was that we were listening to Op Ivy and Jawbreaker and the Muffs and a lot of bands, that didn't have horns necessarily. We're a little bit more on the skater punk side, Sublime, bands that were sort of like not focused on horns, let's say. And that's some of our influences were sort of some skate punk things at that moment, even though, my roots are in sort of more traditional ska and reggae and that kind of stuff myself also. But then we had these two vocal parts that were really busy. We were writing all these crazy harmonies. We were doing a lot vocally and oohs and ahs when we weren't singing the lead and all kinds of stuff happening. And we had two guitar players, and we just felt like it was pretty busy already and musically busy, and we didn't need this extra sort of addition of trying to fit horn parts in and where would they go, and like it was because of the dual lead thing that we were doing, we didn't feel like it was necessary as much. So exactly what you said.
I guess my instinct was right. I felt that, and when I heard Lockjaw, it was just such a step up for the whole band, the playing and everything. And we'll get into the producer Andy Stoker Graucott, because I want to talk about him, which is very interesting. That's a whole conversation we'll get into in a moment. But this particular song, "Go," 3 minutes and 10 seconds. Great little pop tune. Set it up for us. Do you remember where you were when the idea came?
Oh boy.
Does it involve a love interest?
No, I just.
Oh, okay. That was the look.
The question is, do I remember? I mean, the thing is, it's like, do I remember where I was? No, I'm sorry, I don't remember where I was. This is one of those songs that sort of came about in that interim period where we were, not signed yet to 510. an MCA. We were in that sort of middle period there. Jason was had been in Downfall with Tim Armstrong. That was sort of a band that had come out of Operation Ivy. So our guitar player Jason Hammond was in Downfall with Tim Armstrong, and I think he wrote this sort of these guitar part, this kind of the structure of the song, and that's how we wrote a lot of our songs. Is that one of our guitar players, different people at different times, but Jason was always there throughout, and he would come up with parts and then sort of present them to us on cassette tape back in the old days. Kind of just like come up with a bunch of ideas, and then Elise and I would sort of take them, and one of us might be like, oh, I've got some ideas for this song, and the other one, I've got some ideas for this song. So that one, I think he was influenced. That's that dun 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 kind of major 3-chord like kind of hits. I think that's to me that sounds very Op Ivy and Downfall. It's like bum, bum, we're starting a revolution here. Not that that's what it is, but
no, it's got that Rancid vibe. It's the Matt Freeman, Tim Armstrong thing. I could totally see that.
And I kind of think that was musically a little bit of a nod for him to them, because we obviously thought they were great, and they did start the band. Yeah, which I'm assuming that.
I do know that, and just real quick for the listeners. Tim Armstrong and Matt Freeman, of course, from Rancid and Operation Ivy, were in the first incarnation of the Dancehall Crashers, and that was, I believe, in 1989 that they were a part of that. And you and Elise joined in 90, a year later,
Elise
correct?
joined before I did, and I don't know if we want to get into the history of that as well, but she started, I think Tim Armstrong had actually already left. There was a woman named Ingrid singing, and Ingrid and Elise sang together for a little while, then Ingrid quit, and my brother was friends with those guys. He's in the ska scene too, and he's a year younger than me, and somebody was saying, oh, we need a girl singer. He's like, my sister's a really good singer, you should get her. So I joined about 6 months or 7 months after Elise, I believe, something like that. And so anyway, back to Go, which is that it was I think a nod to that sort of like that big guitar kind of intro. And then where I was, I don't remember where I was when I wrote the lyrics, but and the melody, but I know what they're about and all that kind of stuff, but I don't have my memory of my moment. But that's where we were.
No, that's fine. I guess I'm more going for, of course, this is, I always say on the show, anything pre-YouTube, we could go out and play our songs to our fans before we recorded them. Were you playing this in a live setting before you ever stepped foot in the studio?
This one we were. A lot of the songs on Lockjaw, that's not the case. But this song was, there was just a couple of songs on the album that we had been playing previous to writing the rest of the album. And this one in particular was, we had done a demo with this song and Truly Comfortable and a couple of, what else was on there? Maybe Othello, Next to You, Othello. Anyway, Go ended up going to Hawaii, and a demo of it ended up being on Radio Free Hawaii, which was a huge like boost for us. Like they loved us in Hawaii.
That was a massive station. So influential.
And they totally broke us in Hawaii. Like it was crazy. We went there before we did Lockjaw. So I was trying to remember all this. I was like, was it before or after? But it became this huge hit there. And that was sort of like another reason that we're like, well, maybe we should look for a label and get this together. Like, I mean, we were sort of there, but we weren't really, I don't think we had all decided that we really wanted to make a go of it at that point. We were still sort of getting back into the band and seeing what it was like. So Go was just this huge hit in Hawaii. It was crazy. We went there and like everybody recognized us. We had this bizarre like Beatles moment, which was completely confusing to us because we had been playing, for much smaller audiences anywhere else.
You can't get arrested 6 hours earlier in LAX. You land in Hawaii and you're mobbed.
Yeah,
that's a weird feeling.
It's totally bizarre. I mean, everybody, like the sort of like you'd go into a grocery store and like the guy working at the counter would know you, and like all these kind of weird moments. We went to the signing at record stores, and people are like lined up down the block and screaming.
That's cool.
Like, it was bizarre. It was really, really fun just to have this weird moment. But Go had been, we were playing it already, so that was already where we were at.
Okay, so the song lyrically and structurally was done before you stepped in the studio. Do you remember when you got in the studio? Was there a lot of changes? Did the producer Stoker have a lot of changes to arrangement or anything? Was it pretty much what you were playing when you were in Hawaii?
It was pretty much. I think our earlier demos had a better sort of more prominent upbeats, and he didn't change any arrangement stuff. Stoker is super awesome, and we can get into him in a minute too, because
Sure.
he had a really positive influence on us and just on that whole record on Lockjaw. But this particular song, I don't think we did any real changes. There was some guitar, like I said, upbeats were more prominent in the demo version. But I don't think we did any change in arrangement, really.
The reason I brought that up, this is a very different arrangement. And it's so funny. I never thought of this song as having a weird arrangement until I started to really analyze it. It just was one of your songs. It's a great song, but getting into it, I'm breaking it down, and I don't even exactly know what some of these parts are. Let's get into that right now. So the riff you're talking about with those hits, the dun, dun, dun at the top, it's a really quick 10-second intro. And I'll tell you, that riff, dun, 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 that is just the epitome of a ska riff, right? That just screams.
Yeah.
It's just so catchy and so good. And that was something that you said Jason had written.
Yeah, Jason had written that. I think that's sort of what I said his influence probably was, these kind of like epic sounding, like dun dun, and we had two guitar players, so I think they get fun with their upbeats and all that kind of stuff. But that's where the intro comes from. He created that sort of that vibe there for sure. That's his setup.
Right, and we start out with basically it's chorus 1 that starts the song off. Want to go with you, but I think I'll stay. Want to go with you, but I think I'll stay. Want to go with you, but I think I'll stay. Want to go with you, but I think I'll stay. And you don't need anything else there. It's catchy as hell.
Okay, I have to preface this with like, oh God, we're getting into the song that I wrote when I was 19 or something, or 20. So let's just say, not the best lyric writing of all time, but I obviously wanted this catchy feeling, and I mean, we can get into what the whole thing is about.
Oh,
but I had moved from, but like, I know it is weird that it starts with the chorus, because when I talked to you about doing this song, I was like, yeah, and then I listened back, I'm like, I didn't even realize that it really does start with the chorus, which is kind of unusual. Like, you don't always do that usually, especially Dancehall Crasher songs. We don't usually start with the chorus. We definitely had like first one, set it up, pre-chorus. There's no pre-chorus in this song. No. Then there's a the real chorus. Then you have a bridge. We don't even have a bridge on this song. So it's kind of a weird. It is a weird arrangement for us.
Very weird, but I mean, it just hits you right off the bat. The harmonies right off the top. But yeah, it's only one lyric. Want to go with you, but I think I'll stay. And I've had a few people on the show now echo the same sentiments as you of, I wrote this song when I was 20. Yeah. And I relate to that. I relate when fans come up and they want me to sign the first demo we did or the first seat. I'm like, I know. It's just right. But I always say that you got to think of it, and I have to dig deep, and it's gotten a lot easier over the years that I look at it from a fan perspective, and I know how much those early records of certain bands, Crimp Shrine, 15, some of those bands, the stylistically and production-wise, it wasn't that great, but what those records mean to me,
for sure,
and what they mean to those fans.
For sure, and I appreciate it more as the years go by. I definitely agree with you on that. Yeah. And I think that, there is an energy that comes with being that age when you're writing that is so important, that carries over these sort of like slight embarrassment about some musical or lyric choices that we were making as young people, still trying to figure out how to write a song. Like, we didn't know how to write songs. We were still like learning. And, in this section, I wrote all the melody and the lyrics for this, but we would try different harmonies out, and definitely we went a lot into unison. And this was one moment, I think, want to go with you, but I think I'll stay. It's like, should we do a harmony on that? Want to go with you, but it sounds ridiculous. Let's keep it in unison and just go for it together. Like it's but I think I'll stay. We tried a few harmonies and everything just sounded ridiculous. So that's sort of like our coming in together as a unified voice there. Wanna go with you, but I think I'll stay. Wanna go with you, but I think I'll stay. Wanna go with you, but I think I'll stay. Wanna go with you.
That's great. I mean, people for years have been double tracking vocals on records. Why not do it live? And it seems like you picked the perfect balance with what to harmonize with. And I know you practiced your tails off. It's evident because I'm assuming 1995 and certainly your first record wasn't to Pro Tools, right? So this was all to tape.
It was all to tape,
which means that again, you had to be rehearsed.
Oh,
it wasn't gonna get fixed in post production.
Absolutely not. And I'll just say that, the training that you do when you're going to tape and in those years is vastly different to what people can fix now. So I also was really anal, and I was like, absolutely no way are we going to ever use auto-tune. Like over the years, as we started being able to use it, I was really anal about it. I'm a little more mellow about it now. I just kind of like, well, there's little bits and pieces here. Maybe we'll do that. I don't know. But at the time, we didn't have auto-tune at all. We didn't have any of that kind of stuff. It was expensive or just problematic to use. It was clunky gear stuff.
Well, there's some singers. I mean, you're really great. A lot of. No, I mean that. You know that you don't need it as a crutch. You can, if you had to use it as a tool, it's one thing, but it's not a crutch. Which, as we know, a lot of singers use the technology as a complete crutch. You go see them live, you're like, that doesn't sound like the record.
Oh yeah. No, it's a unfortunate thing because people are using it almost obviously too much at this point. But anyway, yeah. So it was all to tape, and Elise and I just had this. I've been singing harmonies for years before that. I know she had been singing harmonies too. But my background is like I'm a harmony obsessed vocalist. Down the line, Toots and the Maytals, Beatles, Althea and Donna, just Funboy 3, like all these just bands that are just like, to me, the staple singers, like just completely obsessed with harmonies always. So I was coming in with that. And then we, like our first rehearsal, I'm really good at blending. I would like to say that about myself. So I'm having, just anyone that's harmonized for years, as you know, of course, as a singer, that you start to kind of develop learning how somebody's inflections go, how they end words, how they start words, how they're going to say certain words, like, say their consonants, open their vowels, where they're placing, if they're singing like this or if they're singing like this. I have a whole way that I sing with Elise that I think just sort of formed onto her voice and sort of opened up certain vowels in certain ways. So I was pretty anal about it. And when we first started rehearsing, I feel like it just clicked immediately. And then this record, we did more multi-tracking, but in our old record, I remember going in and doing, I think our first song that we were recording together was Keep On Running, which it never made it on an album, but we did it together on the same mic, and it was like the very first day, like, let's see what happens. And we were just right on together.
Well, I went back and listened to a couple tracks. I put Nuisance on, and I was floored because, again, I knew it wasn't done to Pro Tools. I knew this was cut to tape, and it was just great.
It's hard to keep him from hanging around. Girls won't give him the time of day. They just hope he'll go away.
I saw you live back in the day, and you were flawless live, so I knew you could pull it off. Here's the first arrangement snafu for me. I don't know if snafu is the right word, but where it gets interesting. It's the same chord progression, so the last time you say, want to go with you, but I think I'll stay, it's still going, but the lyric changes to, it's been 10 years since I left my home and wandered off without you, and then it breaks down. I'm calling that a post-chorus, or is that the start of the verse?
It's funny. I would never have thought this song was so weird to dissect, but
it's a weird one. Is that the post-chorus or is that the start of the verse? I don't know.
I would call it the verse. I would call it the verse because here's the beginning of the actual storyline. Like, what are you saying, Karina? Want to go with you, but I think I'll stay. I'm so confused. What the hell does that mean? Don't understand, Karina.
But the melody changes and the first two lines are still over the chorus guitar progression.
Well, maybe we hadn't thought of any other chords to play. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think, it's the sort of like out the gate kind of chorus, and then the more reflective, I'm going to tell you the story about what's happening here in this song. So I kind of think of it as the verse. And
you wrote the song. It's a verse. We're going to go with that.
That's
it's a verse.
Don't fight me.
No way.
Don't fight me on that.
Getting into I'm going to read the whole verse now in context. And it's been 10 years since I left my home and wandered off without you. Has it been that long? It's really been that long. And in the back of my mind, I still hear you calling to me, shouting to me, grabbing my attention. So it's at this point I'm going to ask you, what was this song about?
Yeah. So this song, I moved when I was 12 years old. I moved from England, from Cambridge, which was a small town in England. My father lived in London, and I was living in Cambridge with my mom and my brother, and we moved to the Berkeley, Oakland area. So we moved to the States, emigrated, totally, big, shocking sort of change in my life just to be now in the States after a very sweet little English childhood. So this song is actually about, it just had been about 10 years. So it'd been 10 years when I wrote this. Since I left my home and wandered off without you. Has it been that long? It's really been that long. It was sort of like, wow, there we go, 10 years. And so this was actually to a couple of friends, but one person in particular, I think that it was really focused on a dear friend that was there. And I kind of felt, and I say this because I don't like some of the intention about this song, but it was sort of like this feeling of like being stuck in this small town to a friend that I think wanted more in their life and wanted to, maybe pursue music or maybe pursue some other things in their life. And they had been sort of like not sure what to do and sort of stuck in this smaller town. And I felt a little bit like you need to get out of there and go explore the rest of the world and go explore life or move to London or move out of that small town mentality. So that's kind of what the whole song is about. But this particular part of the verse or part of the song is, I left and it's really been that long. And in the back of my mind, I can feel you, I can still hear you like calling to me, shouting to, like trying to kind of bringing me back to that small town mentality. And you're sort of like calling out to me. And when you move when you're a teenager, you have a lot of nostalgia about where you left. It's a deep kind of...
Well, especially that culture shock back then, Karina. The world wasn't homogenized. You didn't have a phone in your face. Going from Cambridge back then to the Bay Area had to be just like you were shell-shocked.
Totally shell-shocked. I mean...
Yeah, what the hell is this?
Honestly, going to junior high and in Oakland schools was just mind-blowing.
And I'm assuming you had an English accent at this point.
Oh, yeah. I was teased. I would say things like, does anyone have a rubber that I can borrow? And people would be like, what? Girl, what are you saying? And so they'd be like, sort of, huh? It was like, an eraser? Oh, an eraser. Just like so many faux pas and so embarrassing. And I just like looked wrong and I just had this funny accent and it was really hard. But of course, so at this point when I wrote this album, felt like my mom had made the right choice. She came to the Bay Area, she came to the States, and she was like, this place is full of soul and music and art, and people can be free to do what they want to do. And, she's a very dynamic, both of my parents are very dynamic and artists and really real eccentrics. And I think she just was like, we got to get out of there. And this is the place my teenagers need to be. Which was totally true. So I think I was like in the back of my mind, I hear you calling me and grabbing my attention and the want to go with you, but I think I'll stay is that friend of mine saying that. She wants to go with me, but she's going to stay because doesn't have the guts to get out or the sort of, just the impetus to sort of like leave a comfortable environment and go out into the world. So that's what this song is about.
Hey everybody, we'll be right back with this Throwback Thursday episode with Karina after a few words from our sponsors.
What's up, everyone? It's Joe, and I'm the host of That's Awesome with Joe, a podcast on the newly formed Sound Talent Media Podcast Network. I talk with tons of your favorite artists, managers, touring personnel, and more. Most of the time we talk about music, but lots of the time we end up talking about something completely unrelated. We laugh a lot. We do a lot of really stupid things, but also some things that are really informative and interesting. Basically, it's a podcast that I think you should listen to. Obviously, I'm biased because it's my podcast, but I think I might be into it if I wasn't the host. Check it out at soundtalentmedia.com.
Shut up.
And now, back to the show.
Well, writing this, as a younger person and feeling a little, I don't know, embarrassed or about it, but that's a pretty mature stance and I thought this was a love song. I was completely off the mark. So I think that's really cool, the inspiration behind this lyric. So verse 1 into chorus 2 is the only time in the song that it goes right into the chorus.
Right.
It's the only time. And again, you get 4 lines of "want to go with you, but I think I'll stay." And then it goes right into the start of the second verse, still over the same chord guitar progression. You say you feel trapped and do not see an answer to the problem. I say you got to get out. Just get up and get out. What are you afraid of? Living, loving, hurting, crying. It's one and all. Defend your fate. Your destiny can be. And we'll stop there before I go to the next part. I'm getting these lyrics now.
Yeah,
after you set it up.
Right. So that's what they all say, except there's one big, not big issue, but one funny little comment here. But so yeah, you say you feel trapped and do not see an answer to the problem. I say you got to get out, just get up and get out. Like it was just, come on, get out of there, right? And so that's me talking to her. What are you afraid of? Living, loving, hurting, crying. Like your fears are holding you back. It's one and all. And then this was supposed to be befriend your fate. And that's actually the lyric. However, this was a weird moment in the recording process where somehow Elise had been, a lot of times one person would sing like all the way through the song and the other person would come and match them and do, overlaying. Somehow her part was recorded first, and she thought the lyric was defend your fate. So she put defend your fate, which is totally incorrect. I was so upset. I was like, no, it's not defend your fate. It's befriend your fate. But her vocal was already on there. And so we just kind of went with it. And I think even in the recording, I'm sort of saying befriend your fate. Like I'm sort of softening that. So it's hard to hear that it's really defend.
What are you afraid of? Living, loving, hurting, crying. It's one and all. Defend your fate, your destiny can be what you make it.
I thought that I was wronged by the internet lyric machine again. That happens sometimes here.
No, it's actually that she's saying defend your fate, and the real correct lyric was supposed to be befriend your fate. Like,
Okay.
make peace with your future and befriend what's to come and get out of there and be brave. So that was sort of whatever, not that big of a deal, but it was kind of funny. It's like defend your fate. That doesn't actually lyrically make any sense to me. So there you go. There's one little thing. And then your destiny can be what you make it.
And that next part, what you make it, you say it 4 times, and the whole band changes here, the whole feel. It kind of almost feels like it kind of slows down. It gets a little sludgy. It's just a different feel for the song. Is this a bridge or is this a post-verse or is this a pre-chorus? Because the chorus is next. I almost feel like this is bridge 1. It's because I always call the bridge the departure, and this feels like a departure for me. But usually bridges don't go right back into the chorus, so that kind of stumps that theory.
I guess it's almost to me like a second chorus, although I would say probably let's call it a bridge because it does happen twice in the song. It ends the song, doesn't it? End the
Yes.
song? Yeah. So
Yes.
in a way, to me, it's like a sort of second chorus in a way. It's like, what you make it? It's just like a halftime. What you
Yeah.
make it? And then that's my big moment to go, what? To hit this really crazy high note, which I don't know if you can
Which,
even
but
hear.
by the way, I've never told you this. Your pictures back in the day, you'd have your little dresses on. You both looked great, and you looked just kind of sweet in your promo pictures. But you looked menacing live when you'd sing. You'd get this scowl, and you would just dig. I remember the first time seeing like, whoa, I wouldn't mess with her at all. Did anybody ever tell you that?
Oh, yeah. Both,
Okay.
I mean, both, the funny thing is,
You look tough. You look tough.
I mean, that was definitely what I was trying to portray. I mean, not to be like, just to put myself back in that time period. It's why I think would be hard for us to do a reunion because I just don't feel like I'm quite the same person anymore. It's like, but I was incredibly, and Elise is super duper tough. If you ever have encountered her, which, all of our touring buddies have, she's an insanely strong, tough woman. And So I think I looked a little meaner because I was doing a lot of scowling on stage, but I think she's probably the tougher one of the two of us. But we both have a really strong personality, and I really wanted to be, the people that I looked up to as performers, Bowie, Tina Turner, all kinds of, strong, performing musicians and singers that I thought were phenomenal.
Plus the punk rock scene that you were immersed in. I mean,
exactly.
there was some tough dudes that were in that scene.
Exactly, and female punk rockers, Susie and the Banshees. There's this Debbie Harry. There's this sort of, gotta get your sneer on and be like the Slits and be a little bit of a tough girl. And also just to show other women that and men, doesn't matter, just that I wasn't a little sort of wallflower that was ready to, scared to be on there. And I felt,
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I felt like it was we gotta fucking do this. Come on. And I also felt the minute you get on stage, you gotta
you got to bring it.
You got to bring it and own it and put on a fun show. And
yeah.
So there was a lot of sneers. That's what I think we.
Okay, well, I'm glad I'm not the only person that said you. I didn't really. I wanted to say that. And I'm like, should I say that? But
no.
Yeah, you look tough. And I made a mistake here a moment ago. I said it goes into the chorus. It does not. So after this, what you make it part, there's kind of this eighth note guitar chugging comes in for one measure. And then a guitar solo happens. And the solo is really cool. It's a little departure, comes in. Catchy as hell.
Kind of rockabilly a little bit, isn't it?
It's got the very, very rock and roll, rockabilly. And then it comes back into the chorus.
Right.
And there's hits here. So it's want to go with you, but I think I'll stay. It's like a hit. And then want to go with you, but I think I'll stay. And then the band stops again.
Wanna go with you, but I think I'll stay. Wanna go with you, but I think I'll stay. Wanna go with you, but I think I'll stay. Wanna go with you, but I think I'll stay.
Were those hits always there originally when you played it? Or again, was this something that Stoker or anybody brought to that? Do you remember if those stops were there?
I think it was one of the final arrangement ideas that we had come up with pre-Stoker. I mean, I think we were. It's sort of coming back, not into the full normal chorus, but wanna go with you, but it's wanna go with you, but I think I'll stay. Wanna go with you, but this kind of back and forth between the fast upbeats and the kind of dynamic stalls or whatever you'd want to call them.
I really like it, and I think it was needed, and it's weird. In context, again, this is the third chorus of the song, and it's the last time it happens. And after the third chorus, it comes out of that with the stops. It comes into a third verse
right
now.
Right.
So, and the lyric to the third verse is, and you come to me with propositions like you really mean them. Well, I've heard them before, so many times before. What are you afraid of? And then we get some of the other verse here. Living, loving, hurting, crying. It's one and all. It should be befriend, but it's defriend. Defend your fate.
Befriend.
Your destiny. Yeah. Your destiny can be. So the first couple lyrics here, and you come to me with propositions like you really mean them. Are you speaking to your friend at that point still?
Yeah, I'm basically speaking to her the whole time, and her voice is want to go with you, but I think I'll stay. And then I'm talking back to her. It's been 10 years since I left my home. And then you say you feel trapped and don't see an answer to the problem. Second verse, and the third verse is, and you come to me with propositions like you really mean them, like you're gonna get out of that shitty small town. And by the way, Cambridge is not a shitty. I love Cambridge, but the small town mentality.
It's a beautiful city.
It's beautiful, but it's not a place to grow into an artist easily. It's it's got its limitations, just like any smaller town. It's a nice place to be a child. You come to me with propositions like you really mean them. Well, I've heard them before, so many times before. It's just kind of like her saying maybe that she wants to leave there and go, be an artist or be out in the world and do other things. And she's just, I've heard them before, like, come on, get it, just make it happen. It's sort of me talking to her again. Yeah.
Gotcha. And the song ends with the what you make it part. And here written in my notes, I had bridge 2 ? Post verse ? Or outro ? Is this the outro of the song?
I don't don't think it's the outro because nothing's changed since the first bridge musically.
Good point. You're right. Okay.
So I consider an outro like the end of like He Wants Me Back or something. We go into this like sort of like back call and answer, like improv part or whatever, like vocalese part. So this is a weird song. It doesn't have what I would structure as a real bridge because it's not that one-time departure that I think a lot of Dancehall Crashers songs, we really tried to write bridges. Like that was a thing. Like, okay, let's really try to write a bridge that really departs from the rest of the song and sounds different. We don't have that. It's over a lot of the same chords throughout the song. we don't really go anywhere.
This song, I think, structurally is great because it goes by quick. It's 3 minutes long, which isn't that long, but this song is just, the parts just seem to happen fast. You press play and it seems like it's over. The end of the song, the outro, very outro of just music, is the intro again, but it's only half as long. It's just dun 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 dun, boom. It just ends abruptly, and it's just tough. Really like it. Always love this song. I was glad that you picked it because it's one of my favorites from Lockjaw. I do want to talk a little bit about Stoker because I'm trying to research him. He didn't have a Wikipedia page, and I dug yesterday for information. And Andy Stoker Graucott originally played in Dexy's Midnight Runners, and for the listeners, they originally did the hit "Come On Eileen," which it's just amazing. I did not know the backstory of him. After he left Dexy's Midnight Runners in 1984, he formed with English Beat members Dave Wakeling and Ranking Roger. He formed General Public, which is just blew my mind. Yes. I had no idea. Stoker went on to produce artists such as Sting, Ice Cube, but also ska acts like The Specials, Let's Go Bowling, and of course Dancehall Crashers. So I'm assuming that whole ska contingency there, is that how he was brought to the table? Was he your choice, or was it someone from MCA 510 Records?
So MCA was not super involved. 510/MCA was actually called a joint venture rather than a subsidiary because Jeff Salzman, Elliot Kahn had been managing Green Day and the Muffs and Jawbreaker, and then they started a label called 510, which was centered in the East Bay, and that was sort of one of the reasons we were happy to go with them because we felt like they really would actually understand who we were, which wasn't going to be the case if we went to just, a straight major that like doesn't really understand ska and doesn't understand Gilman Street punk rock, which is where we had, originated and so on.
And I got to say something real quick, not to interrupt you, Karina. I feel really stupid. So after 28 years of calling it 510 Records, earlier at the episode I called it that, and you said 510, which is of course a Bay area code. So
it's the East Bay.
You learn something new every day.
Yeah. So 510 was the East Bay phone area code. So 510 whatever. So
Gotcha.
that's why they were called that, and that's what we appreciate. It was like Berkeley, Oakland in the house. Like that's our people. Gilman Street and Op Ivy and Green Day and all the great bands that were coming out of there. So, but anyway, I don't even remember exactly how Stoker came through to us, but we had done some research into looking for a producer, and I think those guys, Elliot and Jeff, might have found him. But yeah, his history, and he's from Northern England, so immediately I hit it off with him just as being this kind of like hilarious guy to deal with, and like the fact that he really understood what we were doing in a way. Like loves pop music, like even more than I did. He was like, yeah, it's great. He's like, come on, let's do it. It's fucking pop. It's fucking brilliant. Come on. Just like swearing all the time, which I appreciate. This is an English thing too. It's like, I have to be careful not to swear all the time.
But there's such to this day, you listen to a lot of the records that were made back then, and, a lot of records from that time period, I love them because they hold memories and speed, but sonically they're not that great. Sonically, this record holds up, and there's a youthful exuberance to it. Do you still feel that? I know it's hard to go back and listen to your own stuff, but this record sounds great.
Thank you. I think that it really does. I think that we put a lot of work into trying to keep up this energy. It doesn't sound to me the way that we sound live, which was problematic for us. Like we were really trying to get that energy that we have live, which we kind of got a little bit closer to on later albums, I think. But having said that, and I'm not totally crazy about some of the mixing and so on. But having said that, Stoker himself was our producer, and he gave so much life to this album. And he really, I think, understood this sort of like exuberance that we wanted to get out of it and the pop mentality, and his background so awesome. I mean, the drummer of Dexy's Midnight Runners, another song that like I love by them is Gino. It's one of my favorite songs of all time.
Strap my took the stage star was swinging high. Oh, Gino, this man was my mama's, my Dexy's, my high. Oh, Gino, I did cry, I hail you.
So he really understood the musicality and the background that we sort of were coming from, and that was huge. And he just had a lot of positive and great little ideas, like mini little things, like, no, you just, when you go to the bridge, just go for it, fucking go for it, or stuff like that, or like take it, take off with it, and things that we really needed to kind of make us feel as a band like, oh, okay, like let's shift it out of what we have a strong, sort of musical idea, but we needed that extra sort of energy and a slight difference of where to take things at times. And obviously he's a drummer, and he had great parts for. He didn't come up with like writing very much, but he sort of like focused on the guitar players because we had Scott Goodell on this album, who was only on this album, who's a killer guitar player, great musician, great singer, and Mikey Weiss it was his first album with us as a full album. And Stoker just really added so much. Like, he understood the ska thing, obviously, which a lot of producers maybe wouldn't, like sort of more modern producers, like if we'd gotten some pop producer, like a lot of, like No Doubt got great people, but I don't know if just everybody had different things on major labels that they were dealing with. So it was a 510 based. We were coming from a bit more of an indie label feel, I think, which was helpful, but with some backing.
Yeah, well, I think it sounds great, and not to overshadow, any of your achievements as a band, but in my opinion, my humble opinion, I think that the rest of the world should have been like Hawaii. You guys deserve to be known so much more. The band was great. You were great live.
Thank you.
And I'm really, really stoked that you were able to come on and talk about this song today. Before we go, would you like to leave our listeners with anything going on with you solo, any of your solo projects, No Effects, or possibly in the future, Dancehall Crashers?
Dancehall Crashers, pretty unlikely that anything will happen with that. We're all still on great terms, but we all have our busy lives, and every time we try to do, one little thing that we think we're going to do, like, let's release Honey I'm Homely on vinyl, or like we have these little ideas that we want to get together, and it just kind of falls apart. But, I'm doing tons of work on my own. Obviously, I've been touring with NoFX and singing on albums with them. So we just, they just released the Frank Turner NoFX split earlier this year, and 2020. And I get to play with them, but I'm also, which is phenomenal and amazing, but also performed on tracks with Fat Mike on Home Street Home, which is the musical that he's been writing. And then I'm also, a solo artist. So I have my own band, which has been on hiatus a little bit, but I released a self-produced album called Under Glass on my own, which is... I have it. You gave me a copy. That's right. So that's kind of a weird combination of musical styles in there, but I sort of got to like, I'm going to try all the things I like, a little bit of 50s pop, rock and roll, and a little bit of a sort of sea shanty stuff, which I hear is a big hit on TikTok right now. There's
a track on there that sounds like it was recorded in 1940, and I mean that with the utmost sincerity. It's just your voice, the production, everything about it. You just captured that time period. It's a really, really interesting record.
Thank you very much. And I'm just doing a lot of collaboration, like video things with like Mikey and his uke. I just, cool. Which has been really fun when you get to perform with lots of great people, guys from the Interrupters, and I'm also I just did a podcast modern opera called The Electronic Lover, which is this really bizarre, hilarious piece written by Beth Lissick, who's an amazing author, and Lisa Metzacapa, who's an amazing composer, and it's like this about chat rooms in the 1980s, and it's this weird opera piece that's really modern, with a bunch of voices that's like very, very difficult to sing. Recorded that. And I'm working on a new, and a bunch of things like that. I've been doing some collaborations with Alex Desert and Jesse Wagner from Hepcat and from the Agrolites.
Cool.
We've been doing some like doo-wop songs. And then I'm working on another solo thing that should be out this year soon called Where We Met. And it's just going to be some covers, but some older jazz tunes and some other pop songs. I'm not going to tell you what the song list is right now. So I'm always constantly working on 50 million things, I would say.
Good for you. Good.
I get bored easily, so it's nice to vary things.
Well, once again, thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun to dissect a go with you today and catch up. I appreciate it.
I do too.
I'm Shelly, oh, I'm Shelly, oh, I'm Shelly, oh, I'm Shelly, listen to me.
Hope you all enjoyed that Throwback Thursday episode. Don't forget to scroll back through the past episodes and fill your day with some stories about songs that you love from the artists that wrote them. Thanks for listening, everybody, and have a great day.
Hey, this is Scott from Fly on the Call. Each week I speak to a different musician, whether they're in an established band like Silverstein or the Wonder Years, or a band on the rise like Spanish Love Songs, Origami Angel, or Meet Me at the Altar. We discuss music and lyrics, the successes and challenges of being in a band, and more, as we get to the core of each artist. The show features musicians of diverse genres and backgrounds, so there's always a chance I'll be talking to your new favorite band. Listen and subscribe at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hi, this is Paul Phelps.
And this is Monica Strutt.
And we're from the Daily Music Business Podcast. We're joined by a number of other really great hosts in creating daily content with great advice for independent musicians just like you.
That's right. We put out episodes daily on all topics from music marketing to branding, advice on signing with a manager and label, and anything else you need to up-level the business side of your music career. We've got it covered.
Subscribe to the Daily Music Business Podcast today on your favorite podcast catcher.
Subscribe today to the Daily Music Business Podcast on your favorite podcast platform.